I was on a call yesterday with one of the college players that I work with in one-on-one coaching, and he was talking to me about the most recent game that he's played. Now, he's been playing incredibly well throughout the season. He's a basketball player. And recently, they've started conference play, and he's been performing extremely well during those games. Now, his most recent game, which was this past Monday, was a pretty good game, right? So he played well, but he didn't play quite as well as he has been playing. And so to him, since he's now comparing this game to the most recent games, he felt like it wasn't a very good performance, so he was starting to get down on himself. Now, as he and I were talking, a few different things started to become apparent that were, part of the reason that he didn't play as well as he would have liked. Now, one of the main reasons why he didn't play as well was because they were coming off of some back-to-back games, and he was honestly tired. So he felt more tired and fatigued for the game. Now, that definitely impacted his performance, but it was really what he failed to do because he was tired that ultimately caused him to not perform as well as he would have liked. So when we were first starting to work together, there were a couple main ideas that we were working on. The first one was anxiety. So he was experiencing a lot of anxiety when he played. The second thing was fear. Because he was dealing with all that anxiety, naturally he was becoming afraid of making mistakes, which fed back into that anxiety. And both of those combined led to timid and hesitant play out there on the court. So he wasn't being as dynamic as he would have liked to be. He wasn't driving to the basket as much as he needed to. So in essence, he was holding himself back from playing freely and playing the way that he knows he needs to play. He's made a huge shift where he's gone from playing with that anxiety and playing with that fear to now playing with more aggressiveness, confidence. He's playing freely and he's playing really well. He's getting a lot of points, a lot of rebounds, and all of that. Now, this past game, he didn't score a lot of points. He only scored, I think, maybe 10 or 11 points, which, again, is still a good amount of points, but it wasn't as good as he's been doing, so that was the main difference, right? His bar has been raised so much higher, and he didn't get as many rebounds. He got blocked a few more times, so all in all, he just didn't perform as well as he's been playing recently. Now, going back to what I said about him being tired. Because he was tired, he said that he went into the game just going through the motions and just playing the game. Whereas recently, and especially when we first started talking together, he made this change. He's been going into games with the intent to play well. Now, of course, he always wants to play well, just like I'm sure you always want to play well during your games. But there's a huge difference between going through the motions and, just kind of hoping I play well and thinking, I want today to be a good game versus saying, I will make today a good game and I have the intent to play well, which means I'm focusing on what I need to do to go out there and succeed. So there was a difference in his mindset. There was a difference in the level of intensity that he brought to the game. He was also telling me that he didn't have the same amount of energy that he's had recently because he was tired. Now, without me having to even mention it, he was saying how he realized he didn't mentally prepare for that game, the same way that he's done for the previous games. It was almost as though he took it for granted because he has been playing well. And that's something that I see in a lot of athletes where, once you get to a certain point and you're playing well, you don't give as much attention to the mental side because it feels like the mental side has now just fallen in place and everything's going well for you. But he realized that even something as simple as setting his goals the night before or setting his intention for the game that day or just having a quick call with me before the game, something as simple as that puts his mind in the right place to be able to go out there and succeed. So the reason that I wanted to talk about this and make this episode on it is because to me it really reinforces this idea of knowing what you need to do in order to go out there and play well every single time you perform. Now, of course, we know you won't always play well, right? There are inconsistencies that happen. Some games you're playing a really good opponent and whatnot. But you want to make sure that you know what you need to do to be able to go out there and play consistently well from a controllable standpoint and especially a mental standpoint. So he wants to make sure he's always going out there playing aggressively. He always wants to make sure he's playing with a high level of intensity. He wants to make sure that he's always going out there really focused on having an impact on the game instead of just going out there and almost going through the motions. And the way that he accomplishes that and he puts himself in the position to play that way is by first ensuring that he's doing what he needs to do throughout the week in terms of preparation with his shooting, with his practicing and that sort of stuff. But then also the night before, he has a routine he uses. The day of the game, so game day, he has a routine that he uses. So he has this set structure that he follows that puts him in the position to go out there and play well. And that's what I really encourage you to do as well. Think, well, what kind of mindset do I need to have? What kind of state do I need to be in to play? And then what do I need to do to get myself into that mindset? And it doesn't need to be, a ton of different things that you do. You don't need to worry about, going through a list of 10 different actions that you take to get yourself ready to play. A lot of this just has to do with intention. What intention are you bringing to the game? So for him, one of his main intentions is that he wants to be aggressive with getting rebounds, because if he's aggressive with getting rebounds, what ends up happening is that everything else falls into place, because he's getting offensive rebounds, he's getting defensive rebounds. Those turn into extra points for him. Those turn into, transition plays for his team. He feels like he's having an impact, which, then when he feels like he's making an impact on the game, he then has more confidence in himself. So it just creates this really nice momentum for him. So that's what he wants to focus on. That's very important for him when it comes to starting the game. You want to think of something similar for yourself and then set that as your goal for that game and set that as your definition of success, especially early on in the game. But really the point that I'm wanting to make here is having good games doesn't happen by accident. It happens as a result of preparation, both physical and mental preparation. And for the most part, we know that you're going to be putting in that physical preparation during the week because you have team practices. You want to make sure that you have a routine in place and a plan in place to ensure that you are preparing mentally and you're generating the mindset that you want going into the game. And the last thing I want to mention is that for this basketball player, I said earlier that he was tired for that game. He was coming off of a couple games, back-to-back games, and he was tired. Now that he knows that, and for yourself, the same thing is going to be true, because he knows that, he wants to be extra careful when he feels tired, which means he needs to put in more work when he's tired to get himself into the right mindset, because when we are fatigued like that, the first thing to go is our mindset. And also the last thing we want to do is work on our mindset. So we have to be extra careful to generate that mindset we want, especially if we're tired or, especially if we're coming off of a bad game or anything like that. So think for yourself, what do you need to do? What actions do you need to take? How do you generate that mindset that you want? And make sure that you're going into these games with intent to play well. Not hoping to play well, not going out there and going through the motions, but put the work in to generate the mindset to go out there and play your best on a consistent basis. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training. And if you're interested in any of the sports psychology programs I have available, I've put links to those in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.